rolled out the public flight of a self-flying electric car taxi in the country, the first of its kind in the African continent.
So, ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts, keep your minds open, and let's take off on this journey together.
We are here because we see the future of the continent, and that's what we're supporting.
Today, for the first time in Africa, a self-flying air taxi will take to the skies.
Welcome to Aviation Africa 2025, Murakazaneza, Kigali.
What if I told you that in the heart of Africa, in a country once synonymous with tragedy, the future of aviation quietly took flight? What if I told you that in Kigali, the land of 1,000 hills, machines once seen only in science fiction have risen above the skyline? This is not a scene from Blade Runner or a Silicon Valley lab. This is Rwanda, a nation whose past was scarred by one of history's darkest chapters, but whose present tells a story of resilience, reinvention, and daring ambition. Kigali, with its rolling green hills and streets so clean they've been called the Singapore of Africa, has become the launchpad of something unthinkable, Africa's first flying taxi. A country that only 3 decades ago faced ruin, now positions itself at the forefront of global innovation. The mystery is not simply that a flying car took off in Rwanda. The deeper question is, how did this small nation, overlooked by the giants of industry and technology, move ahead of them? How did a country once dependent on aid transform into a place bold enough to challenge the skies? The answer lies in vision, in discipline, in leadership that understood that rebuilding wasn't just about roads and schools, but about daring to leapfrog into the future. Rwanda did not wait for permission from the West. It did not get trapped in endless debates or drown in red tape. It seized opportunity, partnered with innovators, and declared to the world, "We are ready." So when the first air taxi hovered above Kigali, it wasn't just a test flight. It was a message that Africa is not bound by the stereotypes of poverty and despair. A message that progress is not limited to New York, Tokyo, or Berlin. The flight was a symbol of courage, a reminder that no matter the scars of yesterday, the future belongs to those who dare to imagine.
He has signed an agreement with the subsidiary of Kenya Airways to develop operating models in its key markets. The agreement with Fahari Aviation, the unmanned aircraft division of Kenya Airways, aims to design a network for the safe operation of electric vertical aircraft.
And in Rwanda, imagination is not a dream, it is a plan. This is the story of how Kigali turned its hills into launch pads, how a country scarred by genocide now aims to soar above the clouds, and how the dream of flying cars found a home where the world least expected it. Welcome to the untold story of Rwanda's flying car revolution. Rwanda's story is one of the most dramatic turnarounds in modern history. In 1994, the world knew this small East African nation for one thing, the genocide that claimed nearly 1 million lives in just 100 days. It was a wound so deep that many believed Rwanda would never recover. But against all odds, the country chose not only to rebuild, but to redefine itself. Today, Kigali, the capital, is often called the cleanest city in Africa. Plastic bags are banned. Streets are swept daily. Order, discipline, and a sense of pride flow through every corner. Visitors compare it to Singapore, not because of size, but because of vision. Rwanda decided that if it was to survive, it had to reinvent, and it did so with relentless focus. The transformation began with leadership that prioritized accountability and collective responsibility. The government made unity and stability its first mission, ensuring that no community was left behind. Over time, this foundation gave way to policies designed not just for recovery, but for progress. Investments in education, technology, and infrastructure were not afterthoughts. They were the blueprint. The results are everywhere. Fiber optic cables snake through the hills, connecting villages once isolated by distance. Health services reach communities that once had nothing but despair. Startups flourish in co-working hubs, while international investors arrive with plans for tomorrow. Kigali is no longer simply a capital. It is a vision made concrete. And yet, beneath the roads, offices and bright lights, Rwanda carries something even more powerful: discipline. A discipline that says order is not luxury but survival. That prosperity cannot exist without accountability. That progress must be planned, not wished for. This culture of focus and responsibility became the soil where innovation could take root. When the world heard of Rwanda's leap into flying taxis, it was tempted to call it surprising. But for anyone who has walked Kigali's orderly streets or witnessed its bold experiments in technology, it was not surprise, it was inevitability. The land once defined by tragedy has become a laboratory of hope. From the trauma of yesterday, Rwanda has crafted an identity that refuses pity and demands respect. And as the world watches, this small country is proving that the future is not reserved for the powerful alone. It belongs to the prepared. On a bright morning in Kigali, the world held its breath. The stage was set for something no African nation had ever attempted. Aviation Africa 2025 was not just another summit. It was history in motion. Journalists, engineers, government officials and curious citizens gathered on the rolling hills of Rwanda's capital, their eyes fixed on a small airfield where the future was about to lift off. The star of the day was the EHang EH216-S, a sleek, futuristic two-seater drone with 16 rotors shimmering in the sunlight. To the untrained eye, it looked like a giant toy, silent, compact, almost too elegant to be real. But the crowd knew better. This was no toy. This was the first self-flying taxi to be tested publicly in Africa, and Rwanda was hosting it. As the engines began to hum, a hush fell across the gathering. The sound was unlike that of a helicopter. No roaring blades cutting the air, just a steady, rising electric whir. Then, slowly and gracefully, the aircraft lifted off the ground, hovering effortlessly before climbing higher into Kigali's blue sky. For a moment it felt like science fiction had broken through the screen and entered reality. People gasped, phones shot into the air, and applause erupted as the drone circled above. This was more than a demonstration, it was a declaration. Rwanda wasn't merely participating in the global conversation about future transportation. It was leading it for decades. Flying cars and pilotless aircraft had been headlines dominated by Silicon Valley, European labs, or Asian megacities. Yet here, in the land of 1,000 hills, Africa had taken its first leap into the skies of tomorrow. The symbolism was impossible to miss. Just 30 years earlier, Rwanda had been devastated by genocide, its name synonymous with tragedy. Now the same nation was being celebrated as a pioneer in aviation technology. Watching the EH216-S hover gracefully above Kigali was more than witnessing an engineering triumph. It was watching a country rewrite its identity before the world's eyes. The demonstration carried a deeper message. Rwanda was no longer waiting for others to define the pace of progress, while larger economies hesitated. Tangled in years of regulatory debates, Rwanda acted. The country's agile policies and bold leadership created the perfect testbed for new technology. Hosting the first flying taxi flight on African soil wasn't a coincidence. It was strategy, precision and vision converging in one dramatic moment. For the people of Kigali, this wasn't just about futuristic machines, it was about possibility. Imagine cutting a 45-minute commute through traffic down to 5 minutes. Imagine remote villages connected to cities in ways that once seemed impossible. The future wasn't arriving someday, it was already here, rising silently above the hills of Rwanda. As the EH216-S touched down, the crowd erupted once again. Smiles, cheers and disbelief filled the air. To outsiders, this may have looked like a single test flight, but to Rwanda, it was the beginning of a new chapter. A nation that once fought for survival was now claiming a seat at the table of innovation. And in that moment, as the sun glinted off the rotors, one truth became clear. Africa had taken flight, and Rwanda was leading the way. After the applause settled, curiosity turned to the machine itself. What exactly was this futuristic craft gliding above Kigali's skies? The answer lay in the engineering marvel known as the EHang, EH216-S, self-flying, fully electric air taxi that blends cutting-edge design with practical purpose. At first glance, it looks compact, almost minimalist, a sleek pod supported by 16 rotors in a coaxial double-rotor arrangement. But beneath that elegant frame is a powerhouse of aviation innovation. The EH216-S is completely autonomous. No pilot, no cockpit controls, no complicated training. You simply step in, select your destination, and let the system do the rest. Designed to carry 2 passengers, it's built for short, efficient trips across congested urban centers. Performance is where it truly surprises. This aircraft cruises at 130 km/h and covers distances of up to 35 km on a single charge. That may sound modest at first, but in a city like Kigali, it changes everything. A journey from downtown to the airport, a frustrating 45 minutes by road, can be cut to a smooth 5-minute flight. This isn't just a convenience upgrade, it's a revolution in urban mobility. Safety, of course, is the biggest question. Can you really trust your life to a pilotless drone? The engineers behind the EH216-S anticipated this concern and designed redundancies into every critical system. Its distributed electric propulsion ensures that if one motor fails, 15 others keep the craft airborne. Even in the extreme, with multiple failures, the system is capable of stabilizing and landing safely. Triple redundant flight controls, automatic emergency landing protocols, and real-time monitoring give the aircraft layers of protection rarely seen in conventional aviation. Powering this technology is a sophisticated battery system. The EH216-S relies on 12 independent battery packs with advanced management systems. These aren't ordinary lithium-ion cells, but solid-state batteries boasting an energy density of 480 watts, some of the most advanced on the market. Charging takes roughly 1 hour, and the system is designed with backup layers, meaning even if several packs were to fail, the aircraft would still complete its mission safely. Then comes the economics, perhaps the most disruptive part of the story. Traditional helicopters are incredibly expensive to buy and operate. Prices range from $1.5 million to $15 million, with operating costs that make them exclusive to elites, corporations, or government services. By contrast, the EH216-S has a suggested retail price of around $410,000, a fraction of the cost. Factor in the absence of fuel, pilots, and intensive maintenance, and suddenly, what once was luxury becomes accessible. And when scaled, the numbers are even more compelling. Helicopter rides in global cities often cost $200 to $500 per trip. Flying taxis, powered by electricity and automation, could eventually bring that down to $20 to $50 per ride, making them competitive with ground taxis, but far faster. The global urban air mobility market is projected to hit $15 billion by 2030, and Rwanda, by stepping in early, has positioned itself at the very center of this growth. The brilliance isn't only in the aircraft, but also in the vision of accessibility. This technology isn't designed for a wealthy few. It's built to transform entire transport systems. For a country like Rwanda, where road networks can be slow and difficult, this leap into the skies could mean more than convenience. It could mean economic growth, improved healthcare access, and a new model of African modernity. In short, the EH216-S isn't just a flying taxi. It's a statement of possibility, safe, affordable, and ready to redefine how humans move across cities. When the EHang EH216-S rose above Kigali's skyline, the world asked a simple question: why Rwanda? How could one of Africa's smallest, landlocked nations beat global powerhouses like the US, Germany, or Japan in urban air mobility?
In a strong and more dynamic aviation sector, as a necessary building block for economic growth. With a growing middle class and increasing tourism, the demand for air travel will only get stronger. The numbers speak for themselves.
The answer lies in vision, strategy, and bold execution. Unlike nations bogged down by decades of bureaucracy, Rwanda moves with agility. In Europe or the United States, introducing new aircraft technology can take years, slowed by committees, regulations, and competing interests. Japan and Germany, despite their engineering prowess, often delay innovation to mitigate risk. Rwanda turned its size into an advantage, using streamlined governance to act decisively where larger countries hesitate. Central to this strategy was a partnership with China. The EH216-S is the result of EHang's years of pioneering autonomous flight. Rather than attempting to reinvent the technology, Rwanda collaborated closely with EHang, gaining not just aircraft but expertise, training programs for local engineers, and technology transfer. This allowed Rwanda to become a hub for innovation, while simultaneously building local capacity. Yet technology and partnerships alone do not explain Rwanda's leap. The foundation is long-term leadership. For more than 2 decades, President Paul Kagame has pursued a bold vision to reposition Rwanda from tragedy to triumph, transforming it into a center for technology, finance, and innovation. Kigali became more than a city. It became a model of urban planning, efficiency, and cleanliness, a Singapore of Africa. Kagame's philosophy is clear. Nations should not wait for global approval. They must leapfrog. This leadership mindset shaped the Flying Car Initiative. It was never intended as a novelty for the elite or a PR stunt. Instead, it is a deliberate statement. Africa can lead, not follow. Rwanda's terrain, manageable size, and disciplined governance made it ideal for nationwide testing and implementation. Each flight, each demonstration sends a message: the future of technology is not reserved for traditional superpowers. It can be defined here, in Kigali. The secret strategy is therefore a combination of courage, foresight, and pragmatism. Rwanda embraces calculated risks, forms strategic partnerships, and plans decades ahead. While larger nations debate and delay, Rwanda acts. The result is a small nation with outsized ambition, rewriting the rules of technological adoption. In essence, Rwanda's rise in urban air mobility is no accident. It is the product of deliberate planning, global collaboration, and visionary leadership. Where others hesitated, Rwanda soared, and in doing so, it has set a new benchmark, not just for Africa, but for the world. Long before Rwanda captured global attention with flying taxis, it had quietly transformed the skies with drones. The story began in 2016, when Rwanda became the first country in the world to integrate drones into its national healthcare system. While many nations debated the practicality of drones, Rwanda embraced them to save lives. The program, operated by Zipline, focused on delivering blood and medical supplies across the country's challenging terrain. Remote villages, winding roads, and difficult access had long delayed critical care, particularly for maternal emergencies. With drones flying at speeds of up to 100 km/h, these deliveries became faster, safer, and more reliable. By 2020, over 75% of blood deliveries outside Kigali were handled by drones, saving thousands of lives. These drones were more than machines. They became symbols of trust in technology. Communities once skeptical of aviation began to see autonomous flight as practical and essential. In Rwanda, drones were not toys or surveillance tools. They were lifesavers. Hospitals received urgent blood supplies in minutes instead of hours, and patients survived who might otherwise have perished. This success laid the groundwork for public acceptance of larger autonomous aircraft. When news broke that flying taxis, the EHang EH216-S, would arrive, Rwandans were curious, not fearful. They had seen technology perform reliably under real-world conditions, and they understood the potential. The leap from small drones to passenger drones was significant, but the mindset of trust had already been cultivated. The cultural impact of Rwanda's drone program cannot be overstated. Technology adoption depends on confidence, and by normalizing autonomous flight, Rwanda prepared its population for a new era of aviation. Citizens understood that these innovations were designed to serve them, not complicate their lives. Flying taxis were no longer an abstract concept. They were the next logical step in a story already unfolding. Moreover, Rwanda's drone experience influenced policy, regulation, and infrastructure. Air corridors, maintenance protocols, and safety measures developed for ziplines drones became a foundation for passenger drones. Training local engineers and operators ensured knowledge stayed within the country, creating a sustainable ecosystem for future aviation innovations. By 2025, when the EH216-S hovered above Kigali, it was more than a demonstration, it was the culmination of years of preparation. The flying taxi represented not just advanced technology, but a society ready to embrace it. Rwanda's citizens had learned to trust machines with life-critical tasks, making the transition to autonomous passenger flight far smoother than in countries where skepticism still dominates. From delivering life-saving blood to offering aerial transport, Rwanda had proven a vital principle: innovation is most successful when people trust it. The flying car was not an isolated spectacle, but the continuation of a carefully nurtured narrative. Here, technology meets society, and society, in turn, drives adoption. Rwanda had done more than fly a drone. It had prepared a nation to soar. The skies above Kigali were no longer just empty air. They were a proving ground, a stage, and a symbol. From drones saving lives to taxis carrying passengers, Rwanda demonstrated that leapfrogging the world was not only possible, it could be done responsibly, efficiently, and boldly. Every ambitious leap comes with obstacles, and Rwanda's flying car program is no exception. The EH216-S may have captured imaginations, but beneath the spectacle lie real challenges, technical, economic, and social, that must be addressed for the dream to take flight sustainably. One of the most immediate limitations is energy storage. The EH216-S relies on lithium-ion batteries that provide roughly 30 minutes of flight per charge. While sufficient for showcase flights, this is far from ideal for a bustling aerial taxi service. Engineers are exploring higher density batteries and rapid charging technologies, but for now, each journey must be meticulously planned to ensure safety and reliability. Weather presents another hurdle. Rwanda's lush hills owe their beauty to frequent rains and strong winds, which can easily disrupt electric aircraft. Unlike countries with decades of aviation experience and vast meteorological networks, Rwanda must develop new protocols and training to maintain safety during thunderstorms, crosswinds, or heavy downpours. Every flight must balance innovation with caution. Cost is also a factor. While flying taxis are more affordable than helicopters, they remain out of reach for the average commuter. Early services will likely target business travelers, tourists, and critical emergencies. Scaling the service to wider populations requires careful planning, public-private partnerships, and strategies to reduce operating expenses without compromising safety. Infrastructure is equally demanding. Vertiports, dedicated pads for takeoff and landing, must be built across Kigali and eventually other cities. Charging stations, maintenance hubs, and air corridors all need to be integrated seamlessly. The government is investing in phased development, ensuring each addition strengthens the network rather than creating logistical chaos. Perhaps the greatest challenge is psychological trust. Flying has always been associated with pilots and human control. Handing that responsibility to algorithms and remote monitoring challenges deep-rooted perceptions. Convincing citizens to step into an autonomous aircraft requires transparency, education, and demonstration of reliability over time. Rwanda's prior success with drones has helped build some confidence, but scaling passenger flights remains uncharted territory. The government has responded with a step-by-step rollout. Demonstration flights showcase safety, limited routes build experience, VIP and medical services act as proof of concept. Each successful flight reduces fear and builds public confidence, reflecting Rwanda's broader philosophy: deliberate progress, patience, and disciplined execution. Critics raise valid points. Batteries need improvement, weather protocols require refinement, infrastructure must expand, and public trust must be earned. Yet history shows that no technology is embraced instantly. Railways, elevators, and even the internet faced skepticism before becoming indispensable. For Rwanda, these challenges are not deterrents, they are milestones. The nation has repeatedly proven that it can overcome adversity, from rebuilding after genocide to pioneering drone deliveries across difficult terrain. The flying car program is another test of resilience, innovation, and foresight. Ultimately, the question is not whether Rwanda can eliminate all obstacles today, but whether it is willing to persist. With disciplined planning, phased implementation, and a society open to innovation, Rwanda is turning what was once a futuristic vision into a stepwise reality. From the ground to the sky, every challenge is part of the journey toward a new era of African aviation. Innovation does not always follow the expected path. Often, smaller, agile nations can bypass the slow, cumbersome systems that slow global giants. Rwanda's flying car program is a striking example of this principle in action, a testament to how vision and decisiveness can leapfrog established powers. Think back 2 decades. Much of Africa skipped landline telephones entirely. While the West remained tethered to copper networks, Africans embraced mobile technology as their first true communication system. In one giant step, entire regions jumped decades ahead. Rwanda's eVTOL taxis may represent a similar leap, this time in transport. Contrast this with countries like the United States, Germany, or Japan. Despite their vast resources and decades of aviation experience, regulatory caution slows progress. Safety reviews, bureaucratic hurdles, and political debates often keep cutting-edge projects grounded for years. Engineers can design futuristic aircraft, but pilots, unions, and regulators often delay actual implementation. Rwanda chose a different approach. With a smaller regulatory system, a forward-thinking government, and strategic partnerships, the nation moved swiftly. In collaboration with China's EHang, Kigali became the first African city to host a passenger drone flight, while traditional aviation powers remained tied up in red tape. This agility demonstrates that innovation is as much about governance and courage as it is about technology. The global impact is profound. Rwanda has transformed its image from a nation historically associated with tragedy to one celebrated for ambition and innovation. Kigali is now seen as Africa's Singapore, a small country with outsized influence, demonstrating that bold choices can reposition a nation on the world stage. This example also raises a larger question. Must technological leadership always come from the wealthiest nations? For too long, Africa has been portrayed as a passive recipient of innovation, waiting for inventions from Europe, Asia, or America. Rwanda is challenging that narrative, showing that Africa can not only adopt new technologies, but also lead their implementation. From digital finance to autonomous drones, the continent is beginning to set the pace. Rwanda's pioneering flight is symbolic, but it is also practical. It shows investors, policymakers, and the global tech community that smaller nations can act decisively. They can test ideas at scale, adapt quickly, and turn what once seemed impossible into reality. The lesson is clear. Progress does not always belong to the biggest economies. It belongs to the boldest actors willing to embrace risk. Of course, other nations will eventually catch up. The skies over New York, Tokyo, or Berlin will see autonomous air taxis in the near future. Yet Rwanda will retain the distinction of being first, of daring to act when others hesitated, of writing the opening chapter in a story still being told. Ultimately, the global lesson is simple. Technology alone does not create leadership. Vision, governance, courage, and strategic execution do. Rwanda's flying car program is proof that even a small nation, when guided by foresight and determination, can rewrite expectations, redefine possibility, and inspire the world. From the hills of Kigali to the hearts of global innovators, Rwanda has shown that taking flight is not just about machines, it is about mindset. Leapfrogging the giants is possible when a nation chooses to believe, act, and lead. From the ashes of one of history's darkest chapters, Rwanda has built a new identity, not as a land of sorrow, but as a symbol of resilience and possibility. Barely 3 decades ago, the world knew Rwanda for tragedy, division, and unimaginable loss. Today, that same nation is capturing global attention for something utterly remarkable: flying taxis soaring above the 1,000 hills of Kigali. But this story is about more than aircraft and engineering. It is about rewriting Africa's place in the world. For too long, the continent has been painted as a follower, waiting for others to lead the way. Rwanda's flight has torn through that stereotype. By daring to innovate, by taking bold, calculated risks, the nation has shown the world that Africa is not waiting its turn, it is stepping forward to shape its own destiny. While wealthier nations remain bogged down in regulations and endless debate, Rwanda has already lifted autonomous passenger drones into the skies. That is not coincidence, it is vision. It is proof that innovation is not confined to Silicon Valley, Tokyo, or Berlin. It can rise from Kigali, Nairobi, or Lagos. It can be African. The message is powerful. Just as mobile phones allowed Africa to bypass outdated landlines, flying taxis offer the chance to leapfrog traditional infrastructure altogether. Rwanda's achievement signals something bigger than a single flight. It is evidence that the next wave of global innovation could well be led from Africa. The flying taxi is more than a machine. It is a metaphor for transformation, a reminder that even a nation once shattered can soar again. If Rwanda can rise from tragedy to triumph in a single generation, then perhaps nothing is truly impossible. And so the question lingers: what other impossible dreams might become reality if we dare to leap? If this story moved you, then stay with us. Subscribe to NKEOMA Documentary TV for more extraordinary tales that challenge assumptions, inspire imagination, and reveal the future being shaped before our eyes. The skies over Kigali are no longer just skies, they are horizons of possibility. Africa is taking flight. This is only the beginning.